All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast. For today's show, I was joined by Dr. Lars Stevenson. Lars is a doctor of physical therapy, comes from an exercise science, nutrition background. We dive into him being a little bit of a writer at heart. Um, and you know what's funny? Lars and I just so happened to meet at one of our mutual friends' wedding back in July and got to chatting. I'm like, all right, this dude knows some things. So it's funny the connections you gain just through chance, through synchronicity, you could say. And this is a fun conversation, man. We really dive deep in a lot of different areas, in physical, psychological, philosophical, health, wellness, states of being, consciousness. It's really a deep dive into oneself and offering this podcast as an invitation to self-reflect. And I hope you guys enjoy this one as much as I did. This won't be the first and only conversation Lars and I have, because it felt like we could have just kept going on and on forever in a sense, because there is an infinite abyss of content to discuss in this realm. So, shout out to Lars. Shout out to all the listeners for tuning in. I appreciate you guys being here. If you wanted to submit a poem for Seasons of Becoming, my poetry collection, get them in by October 1st. Once we hit October, we start the publication process, baby. Let's go. Exciting. The link to submit a poem, if you would like to do so, is in the episode show notes below. And I'm really excited about this collection. I think it blows all the other ones out of the water because as I've been going through it and putting the finishing touches on it over the last month, I've been undergoing such a major period of transformation myself. And I can see the archetypal flow and journey within the writing and how it's going to be structured very much mirrors that. So I'm excited. I hope you guys enjoy the collection when it comes out. And if you want to submit a poem for it, um, the link to do so is in the episode show notes below. I appreciate everybody who has already submitted a poem. Truly some beautiful work that has gotten submitted thus far. And also subscribe on whatever platform you are on, as well as my Substack page, mcdermott.substack.com, mcdermod.substack.com. Free to subscribe. Can be a paid subscriber if you like. It's a way to support the show. And you can also donate to the show directly. The link to do that is in the episode show notes below. But that's really all the announcements I got for right now. Like I said, subscribe. There's a lot of great content and interviews planned and interviews that are already done that are coming out in the near future, in addition to this one. So stay tuned. Fifth Dimension's making some big waves right now. Um, as is the poetry collection. I'll be making some big waves too. Just you wait. But let's jump into the podcast with Dr. Lars Stevenson. Enjoy. All right, everybody, welcome into the Fifth Dimension podcast for today's show, joined by a very special guest, Dr. Lars Stevenson, who's a doctor of physical therapy, background in exercise science, nutrition. We were actually connected. Shout out to Dimitri and Kate Full because we happened to meet at their wedding. So, Lars, a pleasure to connect on here, man. I'm excited to be able to chat with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It was a really kind of a surprise when you reached out, but I was excited when you did.
Yeah, well, I had the thought, it's funny because I was telling somebody this a couple weeks ago. Whenever I get the thought of having somebody on the podcast, usually I have like the initial thought. Like I thought of it like probably it had to be at least a month or so back. I'm like, oh, that'd be sweet to like have Lars on a podcast. And then the thought kind of goes away. And then
Hmm.
once the thought comes in the second time, that's when I'm like, all right, time to reach out. So then, yeah, I remember looking at your story and I'm like, all right, I need to reach out to him. We need a podcast. So the seed was planted probably a month or two ago, and now it's coming to fruition. So,
That's awesome.
and I gotta say, I love your content. I love everything that you're doing. Um, just I guess for a little context for any of the listeners, could you kind of put into context what it is that you do? Obviously, I mentioned that you're a doctor of physical therapy, um, but I'm also interested in hearing like about the approach you take too,
Mhm.
more so. I mean, because I think a lot of people have this standard idea on what a physical therapist is or what exercise science is, what nutrition is, right?
Yeah.
And I really resonate and connect with a lot of what you're doing because I don't think you follow all of the standard conventional models and you are very holistically rooted. So, I mean, could you kind of dive into that and on how you'd speak to the way you approach it and kind of the way you're embodying in your practice more so?
Yep, absolutely. So I'm a physical therapist by trade. I graduated about a year ago, so I've been in practice a year almost to the day now.
Wow.
But I've
Congratulations.
been, thank you, I appreciate that. But I've been involved in sports and human performance for the last 7 years. Like you said, my background's in exercise science with a concentration in nutrition. My first job in the field was with St. Olaf College, a small school up in Minnesota that I attended. I was a strength and conditioning intern there, and I was a part of the athletic performance program, and I helped train the athletes that we had there. The volleyball team was my first team that I ever got to work with. Shout out to them. And then from there, uh, met my mentor a couple of years later after that, Coach Kev, and he kind of showed me like, oh, this goes so much deeper than I thought it did.
Hmm.
And so from there, I was able to get exposed to so much more. And so then strength and conditioning was a little bit too surface level for me personally, because I had developed this deep fascination with the human body and its adaptability and how we can make it withstand everything from the brutality of combat sports to uphold the delicate precision of ballet. So that whole spectrum is super interesting to me. And so physical therapy was sort of my way of trying to understand the human systems and its adaptability even better, right?
Mhm. I
And
get you.
so from there, I've been exposed to even more. I'm very fortunate to have met who I've met when I've met them. It's allowed me to skip the line on a lot of things, so to speak. And because of that, I now take a more holistic approach in my practice because none of the mentors that I've had are actually physical therapists. They're sports performance coaches, they're athletic trainers, or they're chiropractors, or they're physical preparation coaches. They're kind of all around this kind of human-centered sphere. They're like exercise physiologists. They're around this sphere of working with the human body.
Hmm.
And so I try to take from all of these different fields, all these different lenses, and incorporate into what I do because at the end of the day, it's the human body. And if it works, it works. And that's all I'm worried about. I'm just worried about trying to get my patients back to whatever it is that they want to be doing because I see myself like as a writer to my core. Like deep down, when I was little, I wanted to be an author. I wanted to write novels, right?
Yep.
I had a terrible high school teacher who ruined it for me for years and I rediscovered it late into college and have been writing again ever since. But that's like who I am deep down. And so when I work with people, I don't see myself as writing their stories, but I'm helping them edit it, right?
Hmm.
And so my role there is to help them remove the block, whatever it is that's preventing them from doing the things they want to be doing at the level they want to be doing it at, right? So whether the block is physical, psychological, or philosophical, I see my role as let's remove that block and rewrite that part of your story.
I love that, and I'm a writer myself, so I'm always writing, and I think it kind of comes down to what I've discovered just in the writing process. It comes down to like beliefs and the ideas we kind of hold about ourselves, I think, in a lot of
Mhm.
ways. Um, I mean, what are some of those like those dominant belief systems that you kind of run into that are major blocks for people? And I mean, how does that impact like progress? How does that impact like do you find like when you have a successful client, like
Mhm.
you're seeing almost a reshaping of identity through the process of
Mhm.
physical therapy? Like, is that kind of the larger goal that you're working towards more so than just healing from injury or,
Sure. Yeah.
optimizing? Uh,
It really depends on the individual. I do work with a larger healthcare network here in Northern Virginia, and the reason so a lot of the patients that I have are just like post-op patients.
yeah.
They'll have total knee replacements or rotator cuff repairs or ACL repairs, things like that. And so, truly, a lot of my role in that sense is more of a mechanic,
Yeah.
right? I'm here to kind of just like get things fixed and get them back to the things that they want to be doing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of value in that, I believe, right? There's a lot of good work that's done there, and it's very impactful, and you can see that happen. And
Yeah.
it's purely at the physical level, and they're there for anywhere from 6 to 16 weeks for throughout that recovery process, and that's the only time like our lives will intersect like that.
Hmm.
And I'm totally good with that, and because that's my role in their life at that moment in time.
Yep.
And so when I get into more of the like psychological and philosophical stuff, that's really more with the athletes that I work with. So I also do work with a company called Athlete HQ, and I'm a health and wellness, or excuse me, a health and performance consultant with them as well. So I help coach athletes primarily at the high school and collegiate level, but I also have helped out at the professional Olympic side as appropriate. And so a lot of the work that I do there is physical again, because that's the role that I play. But
Yep.
that's when we can get into some of the more of the psychological and philosophical approach to things, right?
Mm.
And so with those in mind, that's when we start to having conversations with the athletes about, especially the high school athletes, about the mindset that it takes to do the things that they say they want to do and the underlying belief system that they have to have, whether it's in themselves or within like the community or the world itself, like how you have to view and interact with the world itself.
Mm. Uh, Have you, how has your own like belief system changed through this process? I mean, like, because I think you take a beautiful approach there to where you're almost not trying to, like, you see somebody needs, let's say, the mechanical process, and you're not trying to impose like a philosophical or, certain ideas that they don't need that might actually block their progress, right?
Mhm.
I mean, so how is your own identity kind of molded along this process for yourself to where you can show up and be fully, because I view you as this is a confident guy. He knows who he is. He knows what he's good at. He's passionate, right? And I think that really does take a molding of identity and going
Mhm.
through different levels of self-exploration. So, I mean, what has that been like for you in the almost the reclamation of that like inner writer and coming to
Yeah.
yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. It came through again my mentor, Coach Cav. So when I graduated undergrad, I had a gap year between starting grad school, and so
Mm.
I worked for him during that gap year. And you know how people talk about like having one foot inside your comfort zone and one foot like outside, and that's how you
Yeah.
like you grow and expand what your comfort zone is. I was so far outside my comfort zone, I was drowning for a
Mm.
year. Right. But as a result, my comfort zone grew so rapidly, so quickly, to the point to where I was learning a lot of the things that I learned in PT school, like the things that I was learning explicitly, I had already learned implicitly. So I was
Mm.
like, oh, that's why we did that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Um, and so during that gap year, I said that I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be, the 1% of people who do what I do, and that my mentor took that to heart. And he went, okay, if that's what you say you want to do, I'll help you get there because that's what he does. And I chose him because he does the things that I want to do at the level that I want to do them at, not just from a professional sense, but from, again, a philosophical, the deepest layer of who he is. I wanted to emulate that.
Yeah.
Um, and there's a number of reasons for that. But during that gap year, I was drowning. I was helping train an Olympian for my first Olympic cycle that I've been a part of to get ready for the Tokyo Games. So this was like during COVID.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what my schedule was day to day. I would wake up in the morning at like 7 or 8 in the morning, and I would get a text from him saying, "Hey, I need you here at this time with these things." And that was super stressful for me. And it eventually got to the point to where I got that text, all I saw was every single thing that was going to go wrong that day.
Mm.
And I broke. And I uh, shot him a message back saying like, "Hey, I can't come in today. Something came up. I can't be there." And it was that one day, and I was right back to work the next day. Right, it was just that one moment, but it was in that moment that I realized like, oh, I can't be a better coach or I can't be a better therapist, right, or be the
Mm.
therapist that I want to be until I'm just a better man.
Mm.
And so that's when I turned to philosophy. That's when I discovered Jordan Peterson. It's when I kind of fell into Taoism as well as rediscovered my faith as well with
Mm.
Christianity. And so that sort of bloomed that, and that's kind of led me to develop that, physical, psychological, philosophical model, and has helped me become who I am now because for a whole year I had somebody holding the mirror up to my face saying, "Here's all the ways you aren't who you say you want to be."
Mm. Right. So it's a dose of self-accountability in a lot
Exactly.
of in a
Yeah,
lot of
and
ways.
it was not gentle. So,
Well, I feel like you kind of need that trial by fire in a lot of senses. I mean, do you think that's what we're I mean, because it's tough to obviously like you're doctors, you know this. It's tough to
mhm.
diagnose the world, if you
Yeah,
will.
no.
But I mean, if you kind of look at the state of where people are at generally, I really think the collective at large, and I'm sure you heard me say this in
Mhm,
one of the podcasts, the collective at large really is kind of just a reflection of the individual state of awareness. And so when you look
mhm,
out and you see division and dissonance and fear. I think it's just really a reflection of our own individual state, right? So, I mean, would you say that the collective at large hasn't had that type of like mirror held up to them, and that's kind of what's missing? And I mean, I think in a way, roles like yourself, you can provide that when it's necessary. I mean, and I work as a youth and child therapist, actually. So I mean, a
mhm.
different type of therapy, but
Yep.
I can kind of hold the mirror a little in
Yep.
certain ways when it's
Yeah,
applicable,
of
right?
course.
So I mean, is that dose of accountability that is kind of missing? I don't know. Do you have a diagnosis for the collective?
Definitely not, right? So even in my practice, I try not to diagnose so much like, hey, you have these problems and here's how we can fix them. I just kind of look at the deficiencies of like what's missing,
Hmm.
whether it's range of motion or strength or explosive power or anything else that they might not have of the physical qualities.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, we need to give you that, right? We
Hmm.
need to take that block out and we need to give you what you're missing.
Hmm.
Um, so
I like that. I like
you
that a
make
lot.
yeah. I mean, you make a really good and interesting point though, because it's like you said, you can hold up the mirror in the appropriate ways.
Hmm.
And I mean, especially, I mean, I have no context for this or truly any understanding of like what it is to work with children like at that level, right? Because you are kind of playing in the psychological and philosophical level, but in a way that is playful, that
Hmm.
is at a through the lens of a child,
Yeah.
right? And you have to like you are holding up the mirror, right? Whether they realize it or not,
Yeah.
but you're trying to show them these things in a way that they can understand it in a way that helps them to develop.
Yeah.
So I think the mirror might always be there. Like I think the mirror is there for people to look at it. It just might be a matter of like, are they looking at it? And so like my job is essentially to point the mirror at whatever the deficiencies are, right? And I
Hmm.
think, like you said, there's a level of dissonance and incongruency in a lot of people because I don't think they're looking in the mirror.
Right.
They,
Well,
and whether they're unable to or unwilling to is
right.
probably the individual.
Right. I would agree with that. And I think part of the challenge might be too, I mean, it's not every day that I'd meet like a physical therapist who is taking that approach themselves. I'm sure, and it's the same in my field, it's the same in the education field, it's the same in the medical field at large, right? There where maybe the therapist or the doctor or whoever it is themselves maybe hasn't held up the mirror and
Yeah.
and takes the approach that is very rigid in the way that they've learned it and they're so when you go to that person or you're learning from that person they might not be holding up the mirror as it is because they haven't held it
Mhm.
up for themselves, so it kind of creates
Absolutely.
almost a systematic issue more so but I mean so do you
So
are
you're
you
absolutely right. So
yeah.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I mean you're
You're
absolutely
good.
right. It's so interesting because I've been in clinics where at like I've been in clinics where PTs will complain about patients and they'll complain about patients for a number of reasons.
Mhm.
But the one that always stuck out to me, like sometimes patients are just like assholes. And
Yeah.
that's just the reality of it. But sometimes like they'll complain about a patient who's not getting better. right?
Hmm.
Because in their mind, like sometimes this just happens and it's a part of whatever it is that they're dealing with, aging, the injury, like sometimes things just hit a ceiling. Why don't my patients just understand that?
Yeah.
And I always found that like super telling of like, oh, like you just aren't willing to go and find out, right?
Mm.
Or refer to somebody who does know, or find the person who does know, so you can pass it off appropriately, right? And I've always found myself challenged by those patients because if I'm not fixing the problem that you came to me for, then I either need to level up
Hmm.
or I need to find somebody who's at that level who can help you. And thankfully, I know the people who can help the people that have those problems if I can't help. So I can either go ask the question to them, or I can refer my patient out to them.
Right.
Um, and I think being able to do that is super important. To have that awareness is super important as well.
Yeah. There's a level of humbleness that
Mhm.
that is required, I think, in that circumstance. I mean, it's the same thing with me. If I'm working with a kid who, there's something that's beyond even my scope, I know the appropriate resources to it's like, all right, maybe this kid's needs like an at-risk assessment for their safety. Like right now, I need to pass this off. I mean, I could. I could attempt to handle it on my own and come up with my own safety plans and do this and do this, but I need to have that awareness of like, all right,
Mhm.
well, let me
Yeah.
take a step back. Let me refer you out because it's beyond my scope. And
Yeah.
I don't know.
And then it becomes like you actively move from helping to harming,
Right.
right? Like by omission, you become harming somebody when something like that happens. And like back to the previous example, like I always tell patients if they ask me a question like, "Hey, do you think this will get better?" My answer is always yes, I think so. I may not know how long it'll take, but I don't want to be the lid on your progress.
Hmm.
So I'm not going to be the lid. If you don't think you can get better, then we might need to start talking about some of the psychological and philosophical levels, and I might need to start trying to like poke holes in some of those belief systems. But that's you being the lid, not me being the lid.
Hmm.
And so if we are as therapists not willing to recognize us placing a lid on somebody, we need to remove ourselves from the equation because we go from helping to harming very quickly in that scenario. And so then, uh, but when we are able to, you know, do that, we're able to actually remove the ego of like, I'm not the one helping, right?
Hmm.
I'm not the one who's healing or doing these things because at the end of the day, that's less important than them making the progress that they need to make.
Right. Definitely. Well, and I think I come to the personal belief like everything that like the body is doing, for example, is like a healing response more so.
Yes.
I think the body is naturally designed to heal, and it's really our own limiting beliefs that actively prevent us from healing. Like, why are we
Mhm.
feeling a specific pain? Well, we should, if we lean into it enough, we'll see that the body's responding to external stimuli or whatever we've put it through. And this is its method of like, Paul Chek calls it the pain teacher. You
Oh
know,
yeah.
so it's like, all right, the teacher of pain. You learn from it, you gain wisdom, you adapt, you respond, right? And so I think what you're kind of speaking to, and I don't know how much Paul Chek you've looked into, but you guys have a very he's a I believe he's done physical therapy, but he's like a holistic wellness practitioner, and he runs what's called the Chek Institute, and they're out in California. But
Mhm.
one of his four teachers, because he does a lot of like exercise science with people and corrective exercises, the pain teacher, when it comes on in, you dive right into it, you learn from it, and the body is naturally designed so that you're gonna when you actually listen, because more so than listening, like that's the first step. Listen to your
Yeah.
body, then you can go in and you can take a path of healing, which
Yep.
is what we're all capable of. I think it's just the mind that, if I tell myself I'm not going to heal, well then of course I'm not going to
Yeah,
heal.
exactly. Exactly. I actually had that same conversation with one of my patients today, actually. And it's so interesting that you mentioned that. Like, there's also a reason. that the model is structured that way, physical, psychological, philosophical, because I think you actually have to start with the physical to get through the other layers there. Because if you try to start at the psychological or even the philosophical, it becomes theory, it becomes very easy to talk about. And I think there's a lot to be said about learning through doing.
Mm,
There's a great a quote, a Chinese proverb, Taoist proverb, not entirely
mm,
sure where it comes from, but it's to know and to not do is to not know.
mm. I like that.
So you can say all of these things that you've read or listened to or seen, but if you're not doing that thing, you lose a level of knowledge and understanding because there's so much insight that's gained through experience, through actually doing the thing. Like, again, talking about the physical, you talked about the pain teacher. I think the weight room and the gym is the perfect example. It's the perfect little microcosm for life itself because you do an exercise and it hurts. Like if you're doing it properly, you push yourself. You're sore for a couple of days, but then that's your body rebuilds and heals itself stronger so it can handle more the next time, right? And
Mhm.
that's how you just continue to literally grow in that sense.
Exactly. I love that feeling that I have right now from heavy deadlifts the other day, right?
Let's go,
You
dude.
know? I love it. It's a great feeling. I fully come to expect it and I'm, moving with a little more gracefully because that's just, it's how it happens. But
Mhm.
that's the body responding, adapting, growing. And I definitely agree with you, man. And it's interesting because I think you can take that concept where you start with the physical and then move into almost like the deeper roots.
Mhm.
I think you can apply that in so many different areas. I mean, it's easy to, and I think I'm guilty of this in the past where I was very interested in like different concepts in like spirituality or the nature of consciousness and like almost starting from the philosophical level and not finding a way to integrate it into like my every waking day reality, right? And it almost creates
Mhm.
like kind of a split where you know these concepts, yet you go out into the world and you don't necessarily actively see them or apply them or do them, right? And,
Mhm.
and it can really create this like almost dissonance in the way that you live and the
Yes.
mindset and the beliefs you have about yourself, right?
Yes.
It's almost
Yes.
like it almost kind of creates like an imposter syndrome in a
It
lot of
does. It
ways,
does. Yeah.
you know?
Kierkegaard would refer to that as like despair, living in despair.
Mm,
So I went to St. Olaf College, small school in the middle of nowhere, Minnesota. They actually have the Kierkegaard Library there, which is the largest collection of original Kierkegaardian works in the world. So scholars from all over the world will fly in to have conversations there and to read the original texts and everything
hmm
like that. So that's really cool. And so living in despair is essentially to live separate from like one's true self, to live apart from who you are at the deepest level. And there's various levels of despair. Living in despair, the finite versus the infinite self, the necessary versus the uh, possible self and things like that. And so there's different levels of despair there. But as your consciousness of your own despair grows, so does your despair,
Mm,
right? So if you know that there are these incongruencies in yourself and you continue to let them happen, that only continues the spiral down further and further. And he has these different levels of despair as well, that help to categorize those things a little bit differently. It's dense and confusing because it's originally written in like Dutch, so the translations are crazy. But it's also where leap of faith comes from.
mm,
Kierkegaard is like the original existentialist before all of the like 1900s French existentialist movements. Um, but he really talked about that at the deepest level, I think, before anybody else did. And it's really cool to dive into. But the reason I brought this up, a more accurate representation, a more accurate translation of a leap of faith is a leap into faith,
mm.
leap into faith.
I like that.
And that's so significant because you're not, because you, as a human, at the philosophical level, you don't get to not place your faith into something.
Yeah.
right? Like you don't get like it's not an option. Even if you're nihilistic and you value nothing, you literally value nothing. Like that's where you're placing the value in your faith into is nothingness itself. And then that creates its own issues. But to take that leap into faith, you can take it into anything
Hmm.
theoretically, but that doesn't also at the same time mean that every leap is the same or that every leap is correct.
Yeah. And I agree with you. And that's interesting because I've really been like diving into just the concept of faith as a whole. Like how
Mm,
do I, and how would you how would you define faith? I mean, that's kind of a loaded question. Like for you, I think everybody's going to have a different
yeah,
definition, but it's around the same concept because it's a word that's thrown around. And so, but
sure.
how would you define like
So
true faith?
I don't think I have anything succinct. I don't have like a soundbite for this, unfortunately.
Oh, you're
But
fine.
I view faith as this, right? This is my conceptualization of faith. So you can build a bridge to God or the universe or some ultimate understanding, right?
Yeah.
As you build this bridge with logic and reasoning and personal experience and like objective experiences and pulling and asking other people, eventually you run out of material to build the bridge and you're still not there,
Mm.
right? So that rest of that gap is faith,
Mm.
right? And that's where that leap into faith comes from.
I like that. It's like
Yeah.
the trusting in the unseen and the actual like the values and the principles and it's like a knowing more so than anything else, right? And it's
Yes.
interesting because I really am interested in etymology, which is like the historical understanding of words too, and that's just got me to like look at roots of words and how different words are put together to make another word and this. And so I've actually really the concept of belief even, right? If you look right in the middle of the word belief, you have Lie, lie. So I've started telling myself a belief is not enough because it almost implies levels of doubt, right? There's
Mm,
a level of like, yeah, I believe it, but I'm not 100% sure, right? And
right.
so when you kind of go from belief into knowing and then kind of bringing yourself into the spot of I can't fully see this. I can't fully understand it, but I know it with
Sure.
the absolute certainty of my being. Like I feel it and I trust in it. To
Yeah.
me, that's when you kind of go from belief into faith more so than just believing and hoping. Because I don't always think hope is enough. Like
Sure.
there's a level of like well, I'm not sure. I'm like if I'm hoping I'm gonna get like a promotion. Well, I hope I get it, but I'm not 100% sure I'm worthy of it, you know? Like
Exactly.
like
Yeah,
there
that's such an interesting point. I think there's two things there that I might point out.
yeah,
Um, One is I might change knowing to assurance,
I
just a
like that.
semantics thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I am assured that this is real, even though I don't have the knowledge to prove it,
Hmm.
right? And that's part of that faith spot there. And then. I'm forgetting what the other thing is right now. It'll come to me in a second, though.
That's all right. I was gonna say if it comes back to it's meant to. I'm glad you used the word assurance because I actually use that word quite a bit, and I think
Mm,
it's easy to for I tend to like mix those I don't know use them interchangeably but there is a difference. Assurance is
mm,
actually very like comforting and nourishing I think to the soul in a lot of ways, a sense of
absolutely.
assurance. I like that, man. That was one of the better definitions of faith I've actually heard. I don't
Okay.
think
Oh, thank you.
I'm not gonna say I don't know if I've really asked that question on the podcast before but or really
Yeah.
I don't hear people talking about it much, but I think when you can get into the root of like kind of what these bigger ideas mean, it allows
Mhm.
people to, again, it's like what we were talking about earlier. It kind of comes full circle where we talk about starting with the physical and then moving into the philosophical. When we're talking about faith, you kind of got to understand
You
what is faith, right?
exactly. And what's really interesting about like all this is at the deepest level. So we moved very quickly down to the deepest level, right?
Yeah.
And I think that comes from a level of work and understanding and alignment between the two of us on a physical and psychological level, right?
Yeah.
And at this deepest level, there's an energy that is understood that allows the deepest conversations to happen
Mm.
without there being like friction.
Yeah. Yeah, and you're able to kind of swim in the waters of the unknown and play and like it because that's I mean that's what I enjoy about like podcasting, but I think it's true in any sort of just conversation or creative act
Mm,
or you know a process of creation is you kind of meet on a common ground and you're able to um, you align around the similar principles and then you kind of explore. I think that's how
exactly.
all great ideas are made. That's how all great philosophy is come up with,
Exactly.
right? And
Yeah.
I feel like that's in our society. That's one of the things that is almost forgotten about in a lot of
Sure.
ways, and I don't think it's truly obviously it's happening. Here we are sitting doing it. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
and I'm just and
But I
I
see I know what you mean. Again, like the collective as opposed to the individual here, right?
yeah,
Um, but I think truly part of what it is the Holy Spirit. So again, came back to faith. Christianity is big in my life. And just like growing up, I grew up Catholic,
yeah,
right? And there's a point to all this, I swear. But was taught a lot about, God the Father and God the Son,
yeah.
and like what those were with regards to the Trinity and what they are. Um, the Holy Spirit was also there, but I never was really happy with. I never found like I don't think Catholicism does a great job of illuminating what the Holy Spirit is, at least in my experience. And I think what's happening right now, is an attempt at the Holy Spirit to reach out and connect with itself again.
Hmm.
Right? That's what this conversation is. And so I see, and this is kind of where I bring Taoism into this. I see, the Tao as like the Holy Spirit. Or the Force from Star Wars. Even is the thing
Yeah.
that permeates and binds all things. And
Hmm.
so when we're able to like return to that level and reach out and um, uh, we're able to connect. The Holy Spirit is able to connect with itself once more, and that's the sort of like the divine us reaching out to the divine.
Hmm. Oh, and that's a beautiful way of articulating that and actually connecting those two different traditions. Because I've read the Tao many times, and like having the like once it's interesting because once you almost like there's an intellectual level of it like with reading the Tao. I think that's the first time when I read it, I was like, all right, I kind of intellectually understand it.
Hmm.
Once you actually experience it
Hmm.
and feel it and then are
Yes,
assured in it, there's a whole nother level to it that starts to open up and you can
yes,
start to see how it permeates into all aspects of your life and how
exactly.
it's connected to it's the underlying force of everything, right?
Yes, it's great, and it's always so interesting. And we can have a conversation about this because we felt it, and we felt it move us, right?
Yes.
But there's something that is lost in the language of it, right?
Yes.
Until you've like again, because it's the same thing as reading it intellectually, you understand it, but until you've done the thing or the thing has moved you, it's not the same level of understanding there.
Yeah.
And so I think it's again it starts from the physical layer, and allowing yourself to do what comes to you naturally, and essentially again removing the ego, allowing that to take its course. The concept of like action through non-action, right?
Mm.
And it's this understanding that like people when I tell people that they get confused, or they think when they go through Taoism the first time, they think it's like, so my conscientious friends might think it's like, oh, that's just being lazy, or my less conscientious friends might view it as like a justification to take their 13th self-care day in a row. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Um, and so it's just and so but the idea there is action through non-action is truly at the deepest level removing the ego and letting your true self go forth and do what it does naturally, because that's what you do. Like, but that's what it is. Like you ask somebody like, why do you like these things, or why do you do the things that you do, right? Oh, like I help people. I'm able to connect. I'm able to do these things. Truly, I do what I do because I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And so when I go and truly allow my ego to be removed, it's like you're just fully present doing the thing that you can feel yourself being meant to do.
Right. And that's this like the spark of passion and the spark like that, like you know that is what you know. They're like it's almost hard to put into words because I
Mhm.
understand exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to do. Why else wouldn't I be doing it? Right.
Yeah.
And that's how I've noticed like I'm a big meditator, and I've had
Mm.
periods of life where I'm locked in on meditation, and then I'll go a month or two without doing it. But lately, the last several months, I've been committing to like, all right, I'm going to reconnect with this energy that we're talking about, right? That's been the
Mm.
focus of
Mhm.
my meditation, and that never really previously that wasn't always necessarily the intention behind it, but I've been
Mhm.
much more conscious, and this is my intention. Let me reconnect with the true essence of who I am and feel that and let it guide me. Right. And it's interesting because as I'm doing that, if I meditate, I've been meditating almost 2 hours a day the last several
Wow.
weeks.
Wow.
And it's about an hour in the morning and then just kind of sporadically checking back in with myself throughout the
That's
day.
awesome.
Life kind of becomes the meditation when you do that. That's a
Mm.
saying in meditation. But I am way more productive. I am way
Great.
more aligned. I am way
Yeah.
more like, and I very rarely scroll social media anymore. Like I might go on for a minute just to kind of,
Mm.
see what's happening. But the actual like movement of right, the Holy Spirit, the Tao, that energy, because I'm spending so much time cultivating it and recognizing it and remembering it, it's just you just feel it as you move through your day and move through your actions, and you don't really even have to think about it. It just it more so guides you than anything else. And I think that for me it eliminates a lot of the chatters of the mind, because I think
Mm.
what gets people is it's the doubts, it's the old stories they've told themselves, right? And you kind of have to work past those, especially
Yeah.
like if you're just starting something new. There's gonna be the doubt, there's gonna be the almost the feeling of imposter syndrome right off the
Yeah.
bat, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah. It's are you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
I
of
am.
course. Yeah,
Yep.
so I'm rereading Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself right now, actually.
Mm.
And so it's, the timing of this is always incredible. It's I it's I used to say the timing of I would have conversations like this and it would line up perfectly with something else. And I go, the timing is insane. I've switched now to just say the timing is incredible, right? Because
Yes.
it truly is. The timing of that is incredible because like what you're describing is in that book is from a physiologic standpoint, nerves that fire together, wire together. And so there's literally a physical representation, a physical pattern of that thought process built into your nervous system. Like that's not like a theory. That's not woo woo. That's not anything else. Like you can see it. You can measure that. And so then to do what you're doing, to acknowledge that the pattern of the firing is an incredible thing that we can do as humans. Like
Mm.
unbelievable that we have the capacity to recognize a thought process as another thought, right? Like
Mhm.
levels of thought there.
Yep.
Um, and to go, okay, no, I don't want to think that thought anymore. I'm going to undo that process,
Yeah.
right? And you literally start to again physically change your nervous system.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
it's incredible.
It's beautiful. Well, and it goes to show you what's possible for us as human beings. I mean, if we can go and literally rewrite the entire programs and stories and ideas that we have about ourselves, I mean, just imagine what if if we were to take that on as a collective like measure, like that were to become a point of emphasis, just imagine the possibilities that we have. Like I think we've barely scratched the surface, um, both individually and collectively. I mean,
Oh
like
yeah.
for both of ourselves. I mean, we're still young. We said,
Mhm.
we're kind of just starting out on our
Yeah.
paths in a lot of ways. So
Yeah.
individually, the sky's the limit. But you start taking these types of ideas, and I do think they are becoming more mainstream in a lot of ways. I mean, Dr.
Mhm.
Joe Dispenza is doing incredible work,
Great work.
and I wouldn't call him like a mainstream celebrity, but there's a lot of people who are interested in what he's talking about. I think I remember
Absolutely.
hearing that the amount like published on consciousness in the last like 5, 10 years is like more than any other time in history, like human
Wow.
history. So like people are really kind of diving into these ideas because I think maybe we've hit a point of stagnation
Yeah.
and a lot of people are realizing it. And it's like, all right, well, how do we grow next? What's the next
Yeah.
step? And
I,
to me, this kind of feels like the natural, like almost the transition point, you know?
Sure. Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I think a lot of it has to do with the a lot of the underlying nihilistic and hedonistic tendencies of the collective right now. Right. I
Mm,
think there's been a big push away from like the deepest layer and for strictly the physical,
yeah,
right? Of pleasure, right? The pleasure aspect of the physical, and to justify whatever it is that you want in the moment. And I think I think truly with all the things that are happening lately, I think that there's going to be a big push in the other direction. At least I suppose that's my hope right now.
yeah,
Um, that things start to swing the other direction, back towards deeper meaning, and deeper understanding of consciousness,
right,
like you said, that there's more to ourselves than just the desires of the now.
right. Instead of just consume, pleasure seek, like, and I think the reason we see a lot of almost like societal crisis or individual despair or individual, I mean, we see so much addiction, we see so much, all of these things. I think so many people are at the point where it's like there's like a collective cry for help, if you
Hmm.
will. And once you
Hmm.
almost get past that initial, you could call it like the dark night of the soul, like Jung would call it.
Yeah.
Once you get past that, you kind of come out on the other end of the storm. And you're like, okay, mm, my perspective has been completely uprooted
Hmm.
through the trials, through the difficulties, through the challenge. I need to forge myself anew. Like
Hmm.
it's like the idea, the pain when the pain of change is no longer greater than the pain of staying the same. That's when you actually change, right?
Absolutely.
And
That's
I,
exactly right. That's exactly right. Um, and with the uh as that continues to proliferate, I think we'll continue to see further and further development. I think of myself as a great example of this because um, truly, it's something to the effect of like, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And if I can do these things, um, then anybody can do any of this as well. Uh, and so much so to the point to where like I've had some pretty powerful experiences. I remember the first time I read Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, I was hearing these things, like about the energetic level and everything, and I was uh, opened my mind to the possibility that this could be real. I was like, okay, maybe let's just for a moment consider that this is real. Like,
mm,
what would that be like? And as I'm sitting there just opening my mind up to the possibility that this is real, I had a conversation with my future self.
mm,
And I don't mean that metaphorically or philosophically. I mean, I literally was talking to a future version of myself, and there was just an immense sense of pride, both forward and backwards, in the path that I had set out on, and the where I ended up,
I love that,
and
man.
what I had accomplished. And so, like, I can foresee experiences like this happening for people as we venture forth.
Right. Well, and you know what's interesting? Something that I've been practicing lately with my clients too at work, but also for myself. I really think it's possible to bring forth the future self through intention setting more so than being goal oriented. And what's funny is I was so at my work, we have a once a week like clinical staff meeting, and there's always a weekly presentation. And the morning of the meeting, my boss said, "Hey Evan, can you like make a presentation? So and so isn't going to be able to do it." Like, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, "All right, sure, why not? Let's go for it." Like, whatever. It only got to be about 10, 15 minutes because it was sprung on me. But I had been really focusing on intention and I'm connecting it with the idea of the future self because what I'll do with a client, one for example, she deals with a lot of anxiety. And she has all these goals and things that she's working towards, but the difficulty is in that is you're looking for anxiety relief. Well, she's stressed about the actual like doing all of these things and it's overwhelming, and that could in theory prevent her from reaching her goals, right? And so what I've been focusing on with her, and I just so happen to align with I'm doing this for myself too, is intention setting, to where it's like, all right, let's drop into the feeling. Let's go into like a meditative practice
Mm,
of let's sit with the feeling as if this is already done, right? Let's say
mm,
you
hmm.
completely accomplish everything that you want. What is that feeling you get? Is it pride? Is it accomplishment? Is it, assurance, like comfort? Really sit with it. And because with intention setting, you can drop into that feeling and feel it in the now. And then, and so I do this with her and we come back and I'm like, all right, at any point you feel overwhelmed, come back to that feeling and allow it to kind of guide you through the process, right? And
That's
I ended
great.
up presenting on this with the in the meeting and kind of guiding everybody into that exact state, doing a little meditation and intention setting. And I found with myself, there's probably 3 or 4 weeks back where I was like, I want to set the intention to come back to me and feel whole and feel radiant and alive and loved and worthy, and just continually coming back to that in moments I've had self-doubt. And, I've just been firing on all cylinders because I keep coming back to the intentions that I'm setting for myself each day. But it feels like kind of what intention setting is it's like having a little glimpse of that future self of where
Mm,
somebody sets an intention to where they want to feel loved. Well, let's get into the feeling now where you already are loved. You don't need the
mm,
external validation, but you go in and you feel it, and then you're cultivating inner self-love in the process, right? Well,
mm.
maybe we don't have a specific goal around that, but let's keep coming back to that intention. And if
Yes.
you do that enough times, it's like what we were talking about with Dispenza's work, where you're literally rewiring your brain to soak into that feeling. And eventually, if you do it enough times, you're training your subconscious mind to feel safe there, to actually
Yes.
go into that space, right? So
Yes.
it's like, I think it's such a powerful thing to kind of go into that. Look, have the conversation with the future self, because it's like a form of intention setting. It's a form
Mm,
of dropping into who you already are,
yeah.
embodying it in the now, and then you can keep coming back to that. Right?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's really powerful and almost underutilized in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Definitely. It's man, you made so many good points. It was hard to keep track of, but just the mastery that you had over the subject to be able to give a spontaneous talk about it is incredible. That's something that's super important. I feel like is to have the competence to be able to always be able to just have uh, something that you can be able to provide with people, especially off the cuff like that. Like all the time, we're presented with things that we're not necessarily uh, weren't necessarily expecting,
Mhm.
and then to be able to provide somebody with not just like uh, the best that you can offer, but not just the minimum that you
Mm.
have to offer, but the best that you have to offer. That is shows a level of mastery that only comes with years of dedicated experience to develop the competence to do that.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because anytime we probably have to make a presentation once every 4 or 5 months. So, I mean, it was really sprung on me. I wasn't expecting
Yeah.
it. So it's just like, this
Yeah.
is what I've been focusing on. So let's dive into it with all the other clinicians and therapists and see where,
Yeah.
see if they
Yeah,
align with it.
and it was good, like helping her helping anybody set the intention, whatever it is, whether it's love or wealth or health or whatever it is, being able to um, create that energy inside of you, you will then begin to like radiate that and emit that same sort of energy, and not only does that like help to rewire the nervous system, but that actually will attract that to you, right?
Right.
But the most interesting about this conversation is the more that I've had these types of conversations, the more I continue to have them.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it just kind of can, it's just like this self, fulfilling prophecy almost. It just is positive feedback loop where it just continues to build on itself, and it's might be the best upward spiral I've ever experienced.
Oh, me too, man. I'm right. I'm right on that same wavelength with you. And it's interesting because sometimes I've actually had this thought a couple times in the last week or two. I'm like, man, like how good does it like actually get?
Yeah.
Like I feel great. I feel energized. I feel aligned. And the more that I go into it, the deeper it keeps going. And like the
Mm.
feelings of joy and like, personal fulfillment, like it's almost like there's not a cap to it. Like, and you can,
Yes.
you
Yeah,
know?
there really isn't. It's like a mindset of abundance,
Hmm.
right? There's always enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Like we don't have to limit ourselves or limit other people for us to be fulfilled or for others to be fulfilled. We don't have to sacrifice from ourselves for other people to be fulfilled, and we don't have to steal from other people to be fulfilled. If we just can you know uh, allow that mindset that the psychological level to manifest that, then it will continue to grow and grow for everyone as well.
Right. It's like planting the seeds in the garden and you just
Yeah,
continue to water them. And eventually it bears fruit and, there's the harvest. Like
it's
beautiful.
it's amazing. It
But
really is.
then with the garden, of course, eventually the plants die, if you will, and then you have to plant more seeds and you continue to grow and you continue to water. And it's a
Absolutely.
cyclical, it's like this with the seasons. You just continue to grow and you continue to change and you continue to develop.
Yeah.
And you're never going to grow the exact same plant twice. I mean,
Right.
I'm not a gardener, so but I guess I don't know. But
Well, you have to rotate crops in order to keep the nutrients in the soil fresh,
Mhm.
right? Otherwise, you deplete them, right?
Right.
We'll complete that little metaphor there for you.
I was gonna say you're more of a South Dakotan than I am, just for no like truly. That's as living in
That's
South
great.
Dakota, I should have been able to make that metaphor, but
But no, but you're doing that's exactly right, and it's comes so. It's like this concept of growth is so the metaphor that my mentor uses, that Coach Cav will use a lot of time, is the concept of the mount, like a mountain, right?
Mhm.
um, and so instead of like continually replanting crops, you get to the top of the mountain, whatever it was that you're trying to accomplish, whatever goal you set out for yourself, whatever intention you wanted to achieve. You get to the top of that mountain and you look around and people are cheering you on and everything feels great. um, but that's not it for you,
Mm,
right? You want to continue to grow. You want to plant the next seeds, and so you look forward and you see this next mountain, right?
mm.
But as Coach Cav will say, there's a valley back down before you can get back up to the next mountain,
Right.
right? And
Exactly.
so it's how can are you willing to endure the 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 pit, the valley after achieving a peak,
Right.
in order to get to where you want to get to next.
Right. Well, and I think it's like with climbing that mountain, you face your own hardships and you have to endure, and there's challenge, and you almost kind of go through an inner tribulation in a lot of ways. Like it's very much like a rite of passage. And that's one thing I've really focused on a lot in the idea of in the past. I think uh, in so many like indigenous and ancient or cultures, past cultures that were much more like rooted in nature. I mean, you look at a lot of like native cultures, the way they would raise the boys and the women, like there's rites of passage for you to step into who you are. And so you're going up the mountain, you go through a rite of passage to reach that peak. And then
Mm,
because you've gone through that rite of passage, naturally you're going to be able to go down to the valley and endure the further descent. You can say the
yes.
descent into the underworld, as we all have to go into.
Yep.
Um, but if you never climb the mountain, you don't get that rite of passage, and then the mountain in itself looks to
Yeah.
be an unbearable, unshakable, unmovable force that, oh man, I don't know if I could climb that, right?
Exactly. Exactly. I refer to that concept. This is just how I like to frame it in mind. I had this realization a little like years ago. Things are going to get worse before they get better,
Mm,
right? And things have to get worse for them to get better.
yeah.
There has to be things have to fall into disarray. There has to be some level of chaos so that the resultant order can form
Mm.
better than what it was previously.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's almost like the kind of what I was talking about earlier. The pain of change needs to be greater than the pain of staying the same, and you kind of have to let yourself get to that point. And I don't, not necessarily like consciously. It's like, all right, I'm gonna, I'm gonna break down
No,
all the walls.
walls.
But
Yeah,
like
no.
you kind of have to go through the what we've been conditioned to how behave and believe
Yeah,
in or engage in
right.
to the almost to an extreme, you
And
know?
there's a way to go about doing that, right? You want to work smarter, not harder. A lot of times people will want to do things like that or say that they're doing things like that, and they probably are at some level, but what they're doing is they're working in a circle, right?
Mm,
And they're working themselves around like this over and over and over again. I'm doing all of this work and I'm not getting anywhere. Well, yeah, because you're running in a circle. That's all you're doing.
mm,
Um, that's why I feel like mentors are so important. Having people who have walked the path that you want to walk, right? That live the life that you want to live, not just from a superficial level that you can see them doing on social media, but truly at the deepest level of who they are. You want to emulate what they do. Then choosing the right mentor accelerates the process so much. And I think truly, probably I think everybody has like a superpower for what it is. I think my two that I have is one, I have an ability to focus for extended periods of time on one thing, just for forever, right?
yeah.
I think I do a really good job. I think focus is a superpower of mine. I think the other like superpower that I really have is choosing mentors.
Mm,
I've been very fortunate, very lucky to have met who I've met when I've met them. And that's the luck element of it for sure, right place, right time. But I think my piece in that is the recognition of the competence and the mastery that they have, and the content of the character at the deepest level that they possess, and being able to uh, learn from and grow from them and learn from their experiences so that I can do what I was meant to do at the greatest level.
right, exactly. Well, and you know what's interesting is I feel like mentorship, again, that's a concept that I think is deeply rooted within us to where, we're
Mm,
supposed to learn from our ancestors and the elders and actually go to those who have walked the path before to
mhm,
actually to learn how to walk the path instead of just
mhm.
hoping to spontaneously stumble upon mastery. Like I don't think it really works like that, right?
No,
But I think nowadays a lot of people, and I can even recognize in my like in my younger years, like I don't know, I'm not that old, but when I was real, when I was kind of
yeah,
first stepping into adulthood, I viewed people like that, like you, because they're indistinguishable. You know them. I was almost intimidated by them, right? There's a level of intimidation,
of
and for
course,
me, that intimidation often prevented me from really like going into it, like going in with these people because I didn't feel fully competent myself to even be like worthy of their presence and time and attention. Right. And
yeah,
I think that's the big thing for people of why maybe they might shy away from seeking the knowledge and the
yeah.
wisdom of others is because they don't feel worthy of it or that, the intimidation factor is too much. It's like, I see what this guy's doing and I respect it. But
Yeah.
man, that's, that's a lot
Yeah.
for me to step into asking of myself. I don't know if I'm worthy of
Well,
it.
it's a couple things. One, it's that am I worthy of this, right? The inadequacy conversation, but then admitting at the same time. So before I go any deeper, there's a book that I think is required reading for every human on this planet, Mastery by Robert Greene.
Mm,
My favorite book ever. I've reread it maybe a dozen times at this point. I reread it every year, but is that changed the course of my life for sure, and actually is how I learned to choose mentors.
mm,
But I think that the uh, identification. So there's this idea that you hinted to the inadequacy of one of deserving of mentorship, but then there's also the admission of the ideal
Mm,
of a mentor is simultaneously admitting that you are inadequate,
mm,
right? At least not at the deepest level of like worthiness and deserving, but it is a self-admittance to you're not at the level that you want to be at, right?
mm.
And there's people who know more than you and are better at those things than you are. And that can be super damaging to an ego, right?
Yeah,
Is to look upon somebody else and go, they're better than I am at this thing,
yeah.
right?
And I think especially as people get older and they get more rooted in their beliefs and their ideas, and they're supposed to, by the time they hit 30, 40, they're supposed in their mind, they're supposed to have reached where they're supposed to be. And so I think
Yeah.
maybe a lot of people will even lie to themselves and say, yeah, this is it. This is the peak. This is who I am. This is where I'm meant to be. And even if there's
Yeah.
a deeper underlying sense of lack or self-shame or pity, whatever it might be, that's kind of running the unconscious mind, right?
Yep.
So I think it's easy to tell ourselves that, oh, I don't need that. I'm happy with where I'm at, or
Exactly.
and
Yep.
justify it.
It's good enough, right?
Yeah.
It's good enough, right? It's part of like uh Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about this too. It's like if you could have exactly what you wanted out of your life, what would it look like?
Mm,
Right? Anything that you want, nothing's too big, nothing's too ridiculous or too small. Exactly what you want out of life, what would you have? And again, I think a lot of people are afraid to answer that level of a question because they define success, but then they also define failure,
mm,
right? And
yeah.
if I don't have these things in my life, then I've failed. So I'm going to live in this gray area and I'm going to be happy when life permits me to be happy, and I'm going to be sad when it's time to be when I'm not happy, which is going to be more often than you are happy, right?
Mm,
Because that's how life will present itself to you. But if you can set the terms of success and failure yourself, then you're actually given a path to follow, right?
yeah.
There's a clear goal, a clear intention to accomplish. And when you make a decision that moves you down rather than up, you can actually see that happening now and
Yeah.
have that conscious awareness that we talk about levels of thought where you're going, oh shit, I'm regressing.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and that's true empowerment, I think, in the purest sense. I mean, a lot of people talk about wanting to be empowered and wanting to live authentically. That path that you just outlined to where you can clearly define what does it mean for me to be successful. And it's gonna look different for every individual, obviously,
Of
based
course.
on our values and our goals and what brings a sense of fulfillment. But if you can clearly define that, I mean, it almost makes I wouldn't say it makes success in inevitability per se, but
Mhm.
it either makes success in inevitability or somebody who is in the state of despair because they're too self-aware for their own good, and
Sure.
they and they
Yeah, I
won't
get what you're
change the
saying.
pattern, right? I
Yeah,
mean, it creates one. You got the two roads, and you're going to walk down one of them.
one
So
of them. Right. But what it does is like as you walk the path, you
mhm.
may also realize there are certain things that you don't want. Where you're
Mm,
like, oh, I thought I wanted this thing because I was told I wanted it, or it looked better from over here, right? From this point, but now I'm up here and I can see that and it's not actually as enticing as I thought it was from
mhm.
where my original vantage point. And so then like there's no rule saying you can't change the terms of success,
Right.
right? Because as you go through this journey, as you act through non-action, as you let your true self venture forth, and you live with congruency at every level, you will discover what you truly want out of life,
Yeah.
right? And what that is meant to be and what is meant for you.
It's like I really love Joseph Campbell's idea of like the hero's journey that unfolds, and it underlines all of our different stories and narratives. And I view it as like a personal archetypal model for the human condition and then the ways of we go about self-discovery. It's like that
Mm,
initial call into whatever the path is, we don't necessarily see what the end elixir is necessarily, right? But it's through the voyage itself, it's through the exploration, it's through the difficulties, it's through the highs and the lows, and you know, the self-discovery process that you realize, oh, this is who I am. Oh, this is what
Yes.
brings fulfillment. Oh,
Yes.
this is success.
Yes. And you have to be willing to accept the hero's journey as true, right?
Yeah.
As first, right? Because again, so like again, we talked about like the consensus of the community at large is like nihilistic and hedonistic, and it does away with the concept of the hero's journey in favor of this stagnant pleasure seeking.
Mm,
Um, and so, unfortunately, I think this is true. I think nihilism actually forms the bedrock of at least my philosophical beliefs, right?
mm,
Like I actually think as you go on this journey, I actually don't think there's any way for you not to get down to nihilism. Like I think
mm,
you have to actually like experience that and truly feel that and the despair that comes with that in order to make a leap into faith. And I
yeah.
never said this before, but I believe the correct leap into faith is into the sacredness of the individual.
Mm, yeah.
And as you leap into the sacredness of the individual, that must be allowed to manifest at every level, physical, psychological, philosophical,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Um, and so then as you accept that and you're able to go onto your hero's journey, right? You're able to climb the mountain and plant the seeds, and you're able to develop into who you were meant to be as again your true self ventures forth, and it's this development becomes your your life.
Right. Exactly. Well, it's interesting. I feel like in a way, I think a lot of people, and this is sort of me just playing with an idea. I've never really thought of it before, but it's like you kind of I think we all start the hero's journey. And
Mm,
a big part of the hero's journey, like you said, is reaching that abyss, that nihilism, that darkness, that despair. And I think that's just where a lot of people stop. They're like,
yeah.
all right, all right, this is it.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm not moving
Yep.
forward anymore. Right.
Yep.
And so, like, once you break past it and you actually sit in it and you look at it and you feel it and you analyze then you do have that breakthrough of right where you recognize the sacredness of the individual, the beauty of being alive, and then the different aspects of self and how it is so complex, right? And that
Mhm.
self-actualization is a concept that it is way more than what we like. If I were to be a self-actualized individual, it is, like you said, physical, philosophical, psychological, spiritual, emotional. You could put all these
Yeah.
different terms to it, right? It's such a complex, deeply rooted idea that this like I to truly flourish is to just allow, I think, the space for all of these different aspects of ourself to become alive and to be expressed and to be acknowledged and seen and put out into the world, right? But we gotta go to we gotta be asking at some point in our lives the questions of like, well, what is the point? Why does it matter? How do I
Yeah.
continue? You know,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
and maybe that's where we've stopped, as if we're gonna put it in the context of a collective hero's journey.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just where we're at in the collective hero's journey. And so
Yeah.
that's where people are it's where people are running around in. And some of
Yeah.
them, they take that leap into faith, one individual at a time.
Yep.
So, I mean, if it's a journey that is inevitable, let's say, for the human psyche, well then eventually the collective has to take that leap into faith. If it's
Yep.
an inevitability, maybe we're just kind of this is where we're at in the journey. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that that's a great way to phrase it too. And I mean, building off of the story analogies here, there's fundamentally two stories. There's comedies and there's tragedies, right? Things
mhm.
either end better than they began or they end worse than when they began, right? And uh, fundamentally, you get to choose what story you have, right?
Yeah.
And as the individual chooses the type of story they're going to have, that will shape the collective story in the process at the same time, right?
Right.
And so I think you make a good point about being like we are, act two of a climax where things look hopeless for the hero, but I truly believe that the collective will rise to the occasion. and slay
I
the dragon, right?
I'm
So,
100% agree because I'm at, and you kind of said this earlier too. It's like, if you can do it, anybody can do it. I'm in the same boat where it's like, well, if I'm at a space where I feel healthy, thriving, optimized, when I've had points where you could define as like a rock bottom and the absolute despair, well, it's like, well, of course anybody can do it. Everybody has to do it. That's like,
yeah.
it's what we're meant to do. We're meant to
Yep.
rise up. We're meant to have this sense of empowerment and embodiment. And I think the more you know, I don't find it a coincidence that I'm meeting more people who are doing this, who more people who are engaging in these lines of inquiry, more, we're to me, like you're a new physical therapist, right? A doctor of physical therapy, and you're taking this approach, right? Like
Mhm.
you can't be the only new physical therapist taking this approach. Like there's something going on in the way that you've been taught. And, obviously, I think if every physical therapist was like you, the whole field would be revolutionary in a lot of ways. But the fact that there are so many young minds and people who are going into these different their own areas of expertise and going in with this almost like trailblazing approach, I think it's happening everywhere. And that's it,
Mhm.
we're kind of planting those seeds like we've been talking about to where this is the direction that it's moving because it's already happening. The
Yeah.
seeds are being planted. It's only a matter of time because it's not like we're going to stop watering these seeds that we're doing,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
the ideas we're putting out here today, who knows what type of seeds we just planted in somebody's brain to where they go and they do this in their own field, in their own communities. So uh, just the butterfly effect of it to me, I have that same um, hope as you. And I almost kind of rest in the assurance that it's going, like I almost, a lot of people look at like the state of the world and feel despair. They can feel despair and feel a little bit afraid. And I think that's natural. There's things that to I don't want to say to be afraid of, but I can understand where it comes from. But
Yeah.
it's like I kind of try and rest at the end of the day, feel assured in that I'm doing all I can. I know there's a lot of people like yourself who are doing all you can. And because of that, we're gonna be all right.
Yeah.
That my favorite conspiracy theory is that it's all gonna be okay. You know, like that's what I really believe in, man.
Hope core conspiracy. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I mean, I love a good conspiracy, but that might be my favorite. So
Yeah, dude.
I don't know, man. Um, well,
That's
awesome,
great
brother.
stuff.
Yeah, we're closing in on about close to an hour and a half. So
Yeah.
this feels like a little hope core feels like a good
Yeah.
spot to leave people
Yeah.
with.
High point for sure.
I don't know. You got any other you got any things you're working on you're excited that are coming out, or if people wanted to like connect with you, where they could find you? I feel like you should write a book, by the way. I don't
Oh, thank you.
like you seem like somebody like when I kind of look at your arc,
Yeah.
yeah, and you're already a writer. Like I
Yeah.
see you, not to like tell you to do things. I mean, you're
No,
you're your
I get
own
what you're
man,
saying.
but
It's in my future. It's in my future. No, don't worry. It's in my future for sure.
all right,
Yeah.
lovely.
Yeah. It's been a goal of mine for a long time, but it'll come when the time's right for sure.
Yep.
I think for people to if they want to reach out, they want to connect over anything. I think the best place to find me is on Instagram at Dr. Lars and in charge on Instagram, and just give me a follow. Shoot me a DM if you've got any questions or you want to connect, or if you want advice on training or nutrition, or if you're in the Northern Virginia area, treatment, we can have that conversation. I offer online coaching as well. So anything that I can help out with, would love to help out in any capacity that anyone wants me to. So,
Special thank you to Lars for coming on the Fifth Dimension. Highly encourage you guys to go follow him on Instagram and hit him up with whatever questions, ideas you may have. If you are in the Virginia area, he needs some physical therapy. Lars might be your man. Hit him up. If I needed physical therapy and I didn't live in South Dakota, maybe who knows? Maybe I just traveled and moved to Virginia, so Lars could be my physical therapist. I would certainly trust him to put me on the right path and realign with myself. If I need physical therapy, some misalignment must have happened. I mean, accidents happen, craziness happens, but was I truly listening to my body? I don't know. I don't know. So, Lars, your man. This won't be the last time we have him on the podcast, so give him a shout out. Go follow him on Instagram. Special thank you to him for coming on. Shout out to Dimitri and Kate Bowl for connecting us at your wedding. It was a wonderful time. I enjoyed it. A beautiful wedding on the top overlooking the skyline of Boston. Beautiful, beautiful. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful time that was. Uh, that's where I met Lars. So lots of beautiful things sprouting from that wedding. Not just love, but philosophy and ideas and conversations. How about that? You never know what type of seed you plant just through your actions. If you're a fan of the show, be sure to subscribe, whether it's this platform you are listening on or over on my Substack, mcdermott.substack.com. Um, Submit a poem, poetry collection, seasons will be coming. October 1st is the date to get your poems in by. After that date, I will be starting the publication process. So we got a little over a week, depending on when you're listening. If it's past October 1st when you're listening, well, just disregard this message and be on the lookout for seasons will be coming because it'll be coming out soon. So be sure to subscribe so you stay tuned on that. Like I said, this is going to be uh, a pretty powerful poetry collection coming in the near future. So I'm excited to get it out to y'all. And I appreciate anybody who's a paid subscriber, whether to the podcast directly over on Substack or donates directly to the show. It does help. I appreciate it. And that's going to wrap up this episode. I don't got much more for y'all today. Be sure to subscribe. Many great interviews coming your way in the very near future. And I'll see you all next time.